Welcome to the third in a series of 6 Year 11 GCSE English Language videos. We've been reading the first chapter of Penelope Lively's Heatwave and have been introduced to Pauline, her daughter Teresa, son-in-law Maurice and grandson Luke. We've learned that they are living in adjoining houses entitled World's End within idyllic countryside, but that the inside of the houses aren't what you would expect from the quaint exterior. Tasks included in the 2 videos so far have included some analysis of imagery, exploration of possible content within an introductory paragraph, and some of your own descriptive writing inspired by Lively. So let's get on with it and carry on honing skills for GCSE English Language. You're watching Schofield on Shakespeare. Lively continues her first chapter by describing Pauline's smaller cottage. Remember, she lives alone, whereas her daughter, son-in-law and grandson live next door. She writes, "The smaller cottage, Pauline's, is rather different. Kitchen and sitting room are paired at each side of a tiny hallway from which the original staircase rises to the upper floor. It is a disconcertingly precipitate staircase, much too steep and with narrow treads. Pauline has had handrails put at either side, but even so, visitors have to be warned. She wishes occasionally that the staircase had been ripped out when the building was done over, but at the time it seemed appealing and in some way integral to the cottage, and now she cannot be bothered with any further upheaval. The whole place is of course radiant with electricity and central heating. It ticks and tocks with timing mechanisms and remote control devices. Green digits blink from display panels. Telephones are poised for action. Computers and faxes stand waiting in Pauline's study and in Maurice's. Both of them can tap into a global communication network. Both can conjure up the information resources of distant libraries. World's End is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It is no more rooted in a time and a place than is the flight deck of a 747. A curious name for a row of cottages, World's Ends. When Pauline bought the place 10 years ago, she was puzzled by the term, but found no explanation until Maurice pointed out that such names were often given to farm labourers' dwellings sited out in the fields in the last century. New constructions away from village centres and labelled accordingly. Places that seemed remote or, ironically, idyllic. World's End, Botany Bay, Tasmania, Utopia Cottages, Paradise Row. He threw out the observation casually, offhand, standing down there on the track the first time he came there before he married Teresa, as though it were the sort of thing everyone knew. Pauline, sitting now at her desk, making another quick note on someone else's manuscript, looks again out onto the track and sees the shadow of that Maurice, back then, making that observation. He slides her the self-deprecating glance he often uses when giving information, and she is at once interested and faintly irritated. Teresa flickers there also for a moment too, standing to one side while Pauline and Maurice talk about the cottages, her eyes on Maurice, far gone in love, snared, committed, lost. One of the key skills within GCSE English Language is being able to demonstrate that you have a broad vocabulary. Of course, this works in 2 directions. You employ more complex words within your own writing which fit and flow, plus you show a precise understanding of more complex words within reading passages. So the first task in this video is to create a table as shown on screen. Press pause to set this up now. The video will resume in 5 seconds time. Now look again at how the words are used within the context and include the full clauses within the example column of your table. You will have a pretty good idea of what the words mean, but check how precise your understanding is by using a dictionary and copying out the definitions. Press pause to complete your table. So disconcertingly can mean acting in a way which makes other people feel a little uncomfortable. Another example might be he was disconcertingly polite and accommodating. So polite that he can't help wondering why or what this person might be after. Note that this is precipitate, the adjective, not the verb, meaning to make something happen suddenly or sooner than expected. In this context, the staircase is precipitate because of how it has been made without sufficient thought given to safety. Next up is upheaval, which is about great, tumultuous change. To give another example, clearly COVID has caused a huge amount of upheaval in terms of the way we live our lives. In this second paragraph from our extract, Lively has used personification. Remember, that's when something non-human takes on human characteristics. How many examples of personification can you find? Press pause to reread and locate. So we have the green digits blinking, the telephones being poised for action, the computers and faxes standing waiting. The overall effect, of course, is to suggest vibrancy, a room buzzing with life and sound from these non-human machines. Your turn. Inspired by Lively, write a short paragraph about items in a room within your house. Personify them to make the room seem vibrant and alive. Off you go. Press pause. I wrote, a red standby light stares unblinkingly into the gloom. A games console, currently unreasonably out of bounds, is poised for action. And there is the reassuringly solid presence of the washing machine, quite literally ready at any moment to rock and roll. How do I try to make this paragraph interesting to read? Well, in terms of the personification, I play with words, with rocking and rolling, both referring to the way washing machines have a tendency to move around a bit whilst in the midst of a frantic washing cycle, but also a style of lively music. There's also the inverted commas around unreasonably, hinting at, but not stating explicitly, discord between two members of the household, presumably a parent and a teen. Lively herself would approve of this technique of suggestion, hinting, leaving the reader to work out or speculate about interesting details, as confirmed by something she said in 2001 when talking about her Booker-winning novel Moon Tiger.
I always feel that any novel should have spaces between the lines. There should be things that the reader fills in for themselves.
To what extent do you leave spaces between the lines for your reader? To what extent do you have the balls to suggest and hint, rather than reveal all far too quickly? Back to Heatwave, and it is clear that Lively, like Shakespeare, is interested by the way appearances can mask reality. The building seems to be a completely natural part of its surroundings. It seems to be stuck in time. But actually, to quote Lively's dramatic metaphor, it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. The inside of the house is as modern as they come. So, your chance. Describe a place which appears to be one thing, but actually the reality is very different. Get writing and press pause now. I wrote, Pemberton College appears to be a place of civility and courtesy. Figurative hats are tipped to guests. Salt and pepper shakers are unfailingly passed down on request. Concerns are listened to with polite interest. But the reality is, beneath the surface there lies seething contempt for others and a pernicious self-interest. How do I attempt to make this interesting? Well, as the task instructed, there is the difference between appearance and reality. Pemberton College may appear to be a really nice, civilised place, but actually it's a place laced with hatred and a despicable, overriding narcissism. Note also the ambition in my use of vocabulary. The contempt is seething. The self-interest is pernicious. It has a really damaging effect. I guess the self-conscious use of the phrase figurative hats are tipped to guests is a far more interesting way of saying that guests are treated with great apparent respect and decorum, whilst the reference to such specific items on the dining room table also helps create a certain character and tone within the writing. In the final part of this video, I want to focus on the three past participles intriguingly left hanging at the end of the sentence on screen. Teresa flickers there also for a moment too, standing to one side while Pauline and Maurice talk about the cottages. Her eyes on Maurice, far gone in love, snared, committed, lost. What do these past participles suggest about the experience of being in love? Take a few moments to think about this and jot down your ideas. It's pause time. Of these three past participles, snared seems perhaps the most significant, as these definitions for the noun snare indicate. Being snared is associated with being tricked or trapped, usually by someone more powerful than you. Within this context, is there a suggestion that Teresa's love has simply narrowed her outlook and surroundings and left her vulnerable to being hurt? But of course, committed is far less emotive, and so at this stage, lively is only making possible suggestions about the downfalls of being far gone in love, nothing more. Nice little task for you now. Have a go at rewriting this sentence, but changing the final three words so that the effect is more positive. And then do the same thing again, but change the words so that the effect is more negative. Get cracking and press pause. Here's my more positive one. Teresa's eyes on Maurice, far gone in love, are windswept, giddy, elevated. Her love has transported her into an exciting world of the elements. This love is not boring and mundane, but dramatic, involving all of the senses, and taking her to a higher plane than that usually inhabited by mere mortals. Of course, there are also possibly negative connotations here as well, particularly with giddy. Could this feeling of being in love impair our judgment and ability to make rational, sensible, prudent decisions? With my negative past participles, Teresa's eyes are on Maurice, far gone in love, and they are battered, bruised, defeated. This type of love is about abuse, being hurt, perhaps physically as well as emotionally. It is about being disillusioned and crushed. That's it for lesson 3, in which we've crammed in quite a lot, probably more than the published time of 30 minutes. Sorry. There's been some exploration of the difference between appearance and reality, some probing of personification, and some exploration of complex word connotations. I hope it's been helpful and enjoyable. Many thanks for watching.